fanatics, crazy Russian dad, very early, beautiful morning, by the way, here in Boston, by the ocean, driving by the ocean. I want to tell you a story from my childhood in the Soviet Union. Yes, when I was in about 8th or 9th grade. Back then they studied 10 years, so this was high school, right? In high school they had this very special subject called, well, in Russian it was called trud, which is like labor or work or like a trade, you know, like a profession. You may not become an Einstein, but you need to learn at least something, okay? And so everybody had to learn this profession. Oh yeah, talk about gender bias. Now they wouldn't do that, but back then, we're talking 400 years ago, right when I was young, all the girls had to learn how to be seamstresses. Is that the word, seamstress? And then all the boys had to learn to be drivers. I don't know if that's how it was in all schools, but in my school, that's how it was. So girls needed to learn how to sew, to sew. Like English so hard, like I don't understand, like how is it sew and then sew, but then there's sew as you reap as you sow. Anyhow, sew with a needle, but not with a needle, with this automatic machine that sews. Don't know what happened with girls, because I'm not a girl, so don't know how it was for them, but do want to tell you what it was like for boys. Boys learned to be drivers. We had this awesome instructor. I mean, he really was a very special gentleman. His name I still remember, Alexei Alexeyevich. Let me explain. Alexei was like Alexei. It's like a Russian, very Russian, nice Russian name. But his formal name includes patronymic. You know about patronymic in Russian? I have a video about that separately. But basically his father's name also was Alexei. So that made him Alexei Alexeyevich, which means Alexei, son of Alexei. I don't know what his grandfather's name was, in case you were wondering. Okay, beside the point, his name does not matter, except he made a big impression on me. He was very patient, and he was very knowledgeable, and he was a very good driver, and he was very famous for a few sayings that he shared with us boys. Number one, good driver needs to be like a good spy. It's not enough to just see, you must foresee, you must anticipate. Okay, and we will always wondering, what's this anticipate? Which brings me to his second point. His second point was a good driver never has to use brakes. He said a good driver can drive all day anticipating what's going to happen and never needing to slam on the brakes. That was the second saying of Alexei Alexeyevich. And then the third saying that he was fond of sharing with us was that there is never an excuse for an accident. Not if it's your fault and not if it's somebody else's fault. The only time you can have an excuse for an accident if the ground opened up and swallowed your car and you fell through a hole, you know, into the abyss. So that was the theory. They taught us how to drive theoretically, and they showed us all the signs. In Russia, at least back then, there were like 500 signs. There was a sign for airplanes that were low, and then there was a sign for children, and there was a sign for women, and sign for dogs, and sign for don't go left and don't go right, and sign. Anyway, there's like million signs. In America, there's only like 5 signs. Everything else is simply write in words, like do not take a right here, which is beautiful. But in Russia, there was like over 100 signs. That's what I remember. Anyhow, and then there was practical part. The practical part, you actually needed to learn how to drive. Theory is nice, but eventually you need to go and try it and practice. What we drove was this big truck. I think this truck must have participated in the World War II. I mean, I think it was that old. And there were no bullet holes or anything, but it was very old, okay? It was big, okay? And it had this open bed, open back, you know, so they would take 5 or 6 boys at a time into the truck. And this was in the winter, and we're talking, so before they invented global warming, we're talking cold, okay? We're talking like 25 or 30 below. And now this is centigrade, which is converting to Fahrenheit will be freaking cold. Very cold, you bundled up, you're sitting in the back, and one lucky guy, one of you, gets to actually drive the truck. And I say lucky, but it's sort of dubious, because to start that truck, okay, you had to use a large crank. All of us, we would take turns using the large crank. By the way, I see you're smiling, you think I'm making this up, okay? Because whatever, your daddy's Toyota does not do that. No, a crazy Russian dad doesn't make stuff up. I mean, this is how it was. There was a large crank, and you stuck it in the front of the truck, and you needed to turn it. Okay, it was a good workout. So that's how we started it. And curses be on your head if somehow the motor stopped or stalled, whatever the term is, because then everybody needs to get out of the back and go and help this shameless person who managed to, stop the truck. You had to do this in a hurry, because if you didn't start it quickly, because this was in the winter, you were going to be there for a while, which happened to us once, okay? And we're talking Russian winter. We're talking very cold. 30 below, all joking aside, is very cold. We were like frozen solid, okay, when that happened to us once. So as you can see, as I'm driving now, I still remember, the lessons of my instructor. So in America, I had to learn to drive again, because I only had the license in Russia to drive that particular truck, which by now is probably some kind of a museum of natural history. I mean, if it's still around. Okay, so that's how I learned to drive. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Now you understand why I drive so much, and I do my transmissions from the car. As you can see, driving left a very big impression on me. Drive safely, and good night.